Chronically absent is basically when you miss a certain amount of days, 15. 15 days is bad. Children's aid is awesome. They help a lot. Like my favorite counselor, he would keep personal things I tell him, and he wouldn't go around saying it unless it was really, really serious. Every time I walk past him, I go 15, and then he says 15 back. We fist bump. Another cool thing is Renaissance Youth Center. Renaissance Youth Center is his after school that work with STEM. It's a cool place. I love it there, and I have a lot of friends over there.
Mateo have been missing a lot of classes because he had asthma. The teachers treat all parents like family. They're always there for us, always trying to know about how my kids is doing. They all send me some projects that he could do, contacting me if I need a specialist. Mateo is doing really, really good. He has been learning a lot. His speech is improved a lot.
So what happened in 8th grade going into 9th grade was the pandemic and COVID-19. And when I caught it, I stopped going to school. My attendance rate in my freshman year was 21%. The most important people that helped me was the social workers and the guidance counselors, because they helped me mentally and they would always check up on me and they would just motivate me and inspire me to come to school every day. My attendance rate this year is 92%.
Good morning, everyone. That was a great start to the day. We are here to talk about chronic absenteeism, a challenge in the US and around the world, and a challenge we know that we can tackle through the efforts and the ideas that we're going to talk about today. My name is Robert Gordon. I'm a Deputy Assistant to the President for Economic Mobility. You will see bits and pieces of me throughout the day. If you haven't turned off your phones, please do so. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce a champion for children and someone who, like me, once worked in the New York City Public Schools, the director of the President's Domestic Policy Council, Neera Tandon.
Thank you so much, Robert, who is instrumental today. And I also want to do a shout out to Jessica Kardashian, who's also instrumental, and Mario Cardona and our entire education team. So good morning, everyone. Good morning. Okay, when you go with educators, they actually say good morning. It's fantastic. It's great to be with you here today. And I'm so grateful for all of you joining here in the room and on the live stream for our Everyday Counts Summit. It's really an honor also to be alongside Secretary Cardona and leaders from across the country, governors, states, and school district leaders, educators, and advocates. Thank you for joining us today, and really, most importantly, thank you for all the work you are doing to ensure our children's success. As we approach the end of the school year, President Biden is laser focused on ensuring that every child in every school, in every part of the country, is succeeding. Simply put, our students and schools have been through a lot in the last couple of years. I think we can all agree the last several years have been challenging, and our schools and school leaders have really innovated. But we also know that too many American students, including children from underserved communities, really are missing the promise of a high-quality education because they're not in class. This makes it even more critical that states and school districts provide a high-quality education to every single student. In particular, we're focused on ensuring that kids can rebound from lost learning during the pandemic, and we all know that one of the most significant challenge we're facing right now in schools is absenteeism. Because the basic truth is that kids can't learn if they're not in school. And that's why we are all focused on ensuring that children are in their seats. We cannot accept chronic absenteeism as the new normal. Data shows that after the pandemic, absenteeism accounted for up to 27% of the test score declines in math and 45% of test score declines in reading. Every day counts in school. But the really important news here is that we know that interventions work. Districts are making progress, including those joining us here today, from Richmond, Virginia to Columbus, Ohio, from Johnstown, New York to Albuquerque, New Mexico. We know that actions of districts and the principals and teachers who are working so hard really do make a difference. For example, Los Angeles Unified School District, during the pandemic, levels of chronic absenteeism reached almost 50%. That is a deep, deep challenge. But the district has cut that rate by almost half over the last few years. And how have they done it? This is what's so important about this work. They've done it really with old-fashioned door knocking, working with trusted community members to knock on more than 32,000 doors and make sure every student has someone to help support them in getting to school. The first thing we're asking is simple but really important. All of us who are part of education, from the White House to the schoolhouse, from the Secretary of Education for the country to the Secretaries of Education of each state, from governors to principals and teachers, we can send a very simple and clear message that students need to be in school, that it is a responsibility of all of us, community leaders, parents, and kids themselves, to ensure that they are in school and that we all can foster a culture of school attendance. And today, we're calling on states, cities, and towns and schools to do just that. States and schools need to report on whether students are there in real time, and we'll hear from speakers today. Many are already taking that step, and it's working. And beyond that simple message, we have four strategies that we really want every leader to adopt. First, increase effective communication with families. Sending text messages and letters to parents about their children's absences can lower absenteeism by more than 15%. Visiting families at home to help find solutions to transportation or other issues that they're facing. 3, making school more relevant for students so that they want to be there, through engaging opportunities such as career and technical education. And 4, meeting the basic needs of students and families, such as connecting families to support such as healthcare, housing, and childcare. And I think the most important aspect of the video that we just saw was that, most importantly, kids need to know that there's someone in the school that has their back, that they're connected to, that really cares about their education. Every child needs a champion, and every child needs a champion in school. I recently visited a school in Los Angeles that had cut its absenteeism rate by 65% in a few years. And really, it was just connecting children who have been absent a lot with a particular teacher or counselor or just an adult in the school. Because, kids really don't want to go to school if they feel very alone. And having that adult in their lives really matters. But we know that from decades and decades and decades of teachers doing the work of teaching, which is having that person make that central connection is so critical to kids' learning. So that's why we're really excited today to have so many people from different parts of the country. Superintendents from Indiana and Alabama will share the ways they are gathering, sharing, and using data already to make a difference. We know it's not enough to talk about this problem. We need to support schools. That's why I'm so grateful for the Department of Education, because it is announcing new steps today to target federal grants to activities that increase student attendance and engagement. We're also providing new resources to identify chronically absent students and communicate important information about absenteeism to families and the community. And most importantly, the private sector is stepping up as well. Today, several organizations are announcing meaningful commitments to support our goals. For example, the Overdeck Family Foundation and the Ad Council have committed to working together on a new messaging toolkit for states, school districts, and principals with effective approaches to increase student attendance. So important to supporting the culture of attendance. The National Partnership for Student Success Support Hub at the Johns Hopkins Everyone Graduate Center is also releasing a digital backpack of resources to address chronic absenteeism in communities. And if I knew what a digital backpack was, it sounds really cool, doesn't it? It's a digital backpack. I'm assuming it's good to have resources like that. Thanks to these organizations for recognizing, it's our thanks to these organizations for recognizing that it will take all of us to address chronic absenteeism. Today, we'll also hear from one family about how their school's partnership with a community-based organization helped provide them the support they needed. Isaiah Ferguson is a high school junior from Fannie Lou Hamer High School in the Bronx. He's joined here by his parents, Lizette Cruz and Pedro Figueroa. Are you here? Yay! Oh yes, yay! Nice. Let's give him a clap. Oh no, you're gonna come up in a few minutes. Thank you. Oh no, you're gonna come up in a few minutes. That's my bad. That's my bad. I definitely felt like I gave you a cue to come up. That's my bad. But we are really excited to hear from you later. And so we're really excited to have people's personal stories, leaders here who are making a difference, and leaders who are really driving results at the local level. And so grateful for all of everyone's participation today, but I am particularly grateful for the phenomenal partnership we have with the Secretary of Education, who is, I work with him very closely on a whole range of very complicated issues. And in every part of what he does, his focus is always, always, always on the child, the child's learning, the child's succeeding, and the child thriving. And I am really honored to introduce him and then bring him up to the stage. Secretary Cardona.
Good morning. Welcome to the White House. Your White House, the People's House. Which states are represented here? Just yell it out. I heard New Mexico, Louisiana, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, of course. I feel like I'm doing calf duty. And look, Rhode Island's in the house. Look, I'm really pleased to be here. As I said before, this is your house, and together we serve our country's children and families. And what a great opportunity to be together to talk about improving attendance for our families. I want to thank Neera for her leadership, her genuine passion and interest as leader of the Domestic Policy Council team and advisor to the president on issues of education and how much they matter. Ever since Neera took this position, we've engaged regularly. She's looked for ways to lift up the work around education, the great work that all of you are doing across our country here at the White House, and we're here today because of Neera, her amazing team, Jessica and team, Mario, Robert, and I also want to give a shout out to folks from my team that have worked closely, Scott Sargrad, Mary Wall, Amanda Delgaitis, just to name a few. This is something that we're passionate about, and we're thrilled to be able to partner with Neera and her team on this important topic, attendance, right? And I noticed none of you were tardy today, so I appreciate that. You were in your seats when we were going to get started. As a fourth grade teacher and a school principal, I saw firsthand the way chronic absence held students back. Many of these students ended up struggling, not only academically, but also found it harder to connect with their peers, to build relationships, and to access the resources that they really, really needed. We know just with mental health, students are 6 times more likely to get support in mental health in the schoolhouse than they are in the community. These students were smart. They're capable. Yet tough circumstances stood in the way of their full potential. We cannot afford to normalize that among our nation's students today. And this is a very crucial moment for academic recovery, so we need all hands on deck to make sure that we're getting students fully engaged and re-engaged in some cases to attend school every day. That's why I'm really happy to be here today with so many key voices, some virtual, some in person, like our Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, Governor Ned Lamont from Connecticut, Governor McKee from Rhode Island, and our education leaders, including State Superintendents Jenner and Mackey, and all of our distinguished guests and partners. I look around the room and I'm just touched because I know You've been doing this work for many, many years. I saw Hetty Chang here a little while ago, and Hetty and I remember walking through a building with Hetty about 10 years ago, where I was learning how to improve our strategies where are you, Hetty? Hi, Hetty. You know, where we walk through the schools and we're learning about how to improve it, and then at the state level. You know, I have my mentor, Gladys Labas, here, who, when I was a young principal, I learned from her. She was a principal that really took me under her wing and then became my professor and just a pioneer in the space of bilingual education, but also really focused on improving attendance and making sure high expectations led the charge. Folks like Madeline Negron, who I work with in Connecticut, and my professor, Marlon James, who now in Texas, who, you know, when I was doing my doctoral program and engaging with him around equity, we recognized, you know, my dissertation was around attendance. And it was his guidance and his push for equity and being unapologetic about it that, you know, really is why we're doing what we're doing here today and asking everyone in this room to let's level up what we expect for our students. It's the folks before me and the folks that are in this room that really paved the way, so thank you. And a special thank you to Keely Griffith, a student at Coolidge High School here in DC, joining us today. Where are you? We clap for students in the White House. I don't know. Keely has led her school in addressing chronic absence through student mentorship programs. So that's powerful, man. There's nothing we're going to do in this country without student voice and youth voice leading it. So Keely, you're setting an example for all of us. Thank you. When we talk about chronic absence from school, we need to understand that this is really, chronic absenteeism is a symptom of other problems. If you dig deep why students are chronically absent from school, they're going to have an answer. They're going to have a story. They'll tell you that their parents needed them to translate at a medical appointment. They'll tell you they're dealing with housing insecurity or food insecurity, or they couldn't get a ride to school. They're telling you that they're facing a difficult situation, maybe confronting bullying at school or mending broken friendships. They'll tell you a reason why they're struggling. And these whys, they matter. These whys tell us that we need to take a comprehensive approach, drawing on good data and evidence about what works to meet students where they are today. We also know this isn't just about filling a seat. We want our students to be excited about what's possible for them when they do show up to school. When our students show up, they should see ways their education is connected to the real world with hands-on and career-connected learning and opportunities to really engage them and prepare them for future lives and careers. Look, I've always said, good pedagogy is the best way to engage students and the best way to get students excited about coming to school. So let's never separate the fact that a good instructional core keeps students connected, keeps students wanting to come to school. Yes? When our students show up, they should have access to the full range of mental, physical, and emotional health resources, or have connections to them at least. It's why we need more full-service community schools. Yeah. Let's clap for full-service community schools in the White House. Our approach to doing so emphasizes transparency, better data quality, and helping states identify schools that need support. But to really make a difference, we need leaders on the ground every day. We need you. We need to prioritize direct family engagement, starting in the earliest grades, to build strong, consistent patterns of everyday school attendance. We have a kindergarten teacher here who would tell you that that's true. We know that chronic absence in kindergarten has a direct connection to later outcomes. We also know that our youngest students cannot come to school on their own. They need help from parents, families, caregivers to get there. There's so many ways to get this work started. In my home state of Connecticut, they launched a research-based home visiting program to support student and family re-engagement and get them back into school. Many states and districts are also using personalized text messages to nudge students to get to school. And more than 75% of our states across the country are using chronic absenteeism in their accountability system. We also understand right now states and districts are having to make some very tough decisions. They're tired of unfunded mandates and demands from others to do yet another thing in education without more resources or support. We all know that's not a recipe for success. And I'm really proud to say that, we hear a lot about education leaders. Well, look, this president, within a month of me serving as Secretary of Education in March of 2021, was ushering in the American Rescue Plan, $130 billion for education in K-12 to address the recovery of education. So when we talk about education leadership, we've seen it not only in that, but in the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act that put $2 billion in our schools to protect our students, and in our annual budget proposals that the president's put forward. We all know that we have to stand behind funding this. So we're going to continue to step up with more funding, including more than $250 million in new grant awards that can address chronic absence, and a proposal of more than $8 billion in additional funding for next fiscal year that can expand chronic absence interventions. That is part of our budget today. We are also stepping up by modeling the sort of public-private partnerships that are so vital to making a difference with our schools, our families, and our students. That includes our partnership with our nation's pediatricians through the American Academy of Pediatrics, which is working to communicate to parents and patients at the doctor's office how crucial it is to be in school every day. And finally, we're stepping up by changing how we do business at the Department of Education so we can better serve our state and districts. I always say the Department of Education is a service agency. What we do needs to impact the field, or else does it make sense that we're doing it? If what we talk about at the Department of Education is not touching the classrooms, we shouldn't be a part of it. Our job is to serve our students and families and our educators and our partners like those in the room. That means that we're not only lifting up examples of states that are meeting the moment with urgency, but we're also providing real technical assistance, including through our Student Engagement and Attendance Center. We're doing our part, and we want to communicate that we've got your back as you tackle these challenges. So moving forward, let's continue to engage boldly and unapologetically about addressing the issues that affect our students in terms of chronic absenteeism. Let's create opportunities so that every student shows up every day excited for what's possible for themselves and for their learning and for their future. It's really time as a country to raise the bar on improving attendance. I know we can do it, and I know we can do it together. I want to thank you, and now it's my pleasure to introduce and turn it over to who'll be providing remarks virtually to my governor, Governor Ned Lamont, for his virtual remarks. Thank you.
Community schools, I used to be a volunteer with Children's Aid Society, and they really realized how important it was to get the community and the parents actively involved from day one in our schools. I see my friend Dan McKee is there. We worked side by side to get our schools back open, he and his predecessor, Gina Raimondo. And Miguel, who was an amazing commissioner of education here in Connecticut, as most of you know, we worked hard to get our kids back to school. And that first summer of COVID, I thought it was all going to be about learning loss and STEM and get these kids back up in terms of skills. But Miguel and I found also these kids did feel alone, as Ira said, and they needed a champion. They needed a shoulder to lean on. And we started what we called learning camps, where we opened up the museums and the aquariums, and just the kids could have some fun so they'd get back being with each other after that period of isolation. That fall, we worked very hard to get our schools open. A little complicated with Washington. They were saying you have to have 6 feet of distance between desks, and that made it really tough for us to get our classes back. But we did get most of our kids back. But as you pointed out, our chronic absenteeism went up a lot. And it's not all due to COVID, but I think COVID revealed a lot of what was going on. Our absenteeism went from 12 to 25%, something like that. And subsequent to that, we tried text messages, we tried telephoning, we tried all the online ways. And as Miguel alluded to, thanks to the ARPA funding, probably the most successful thing we did was called the LEAP. And what we did there, we had, thousands of folks, be they teachers, be they superintendents, be they students, be they not-for-profits, knocking on doors, saying, we miss Jose. Where's he been? We want him back at school. His friends miss him. And as Miguel alluded to, there were a lot of reasons that maybe that student wasn't coming back. Maybe they'd taken a part-time job, and maybe their mom needed them because she had some doctor's appointments and needed her daughter to help translate. Maybe there was just fear, little anxiety about what's going on at the schools, be it bullying, be it some of today, maybe it's anti-Semitism or Islamophobia. A lot of reasons that kids maybe didn't get back. Maybe they just didn't feel really good about math. They thought that was kind of complicated, or had a hard time with the languages. A lot of kids with disabilities just didn't feel comfortable getting back. So what the LEAP program did was not only knocked on doors, said we miss you and we want you back, but also following on what you learned at Children's Aid, how can we help you? What is it we need? What are the other support services? What is the wraparound service? Maybe it's a little after school for your math. Maybe it's finding a way to help your mom get to that doctor's appointment. Maybe it's mental health and counseling. I was with then Commissioner Cardona, and we went to Enfield High School back at, soon after the worst of COVID. And we asked the high school students, if you had $25,000, what would you suggest this, school board do with that $25,000? I didn't know. I come from an age, maybe they'd say, let's go to Foxwoods or something. That's an entertainment facility. A 17-year-old boy raised his hand and said, confidential counseling. That's what I need. And I think I hear that from a lot of my friends as well. So these are all different ways we try and help that child who maybe feels alone, maybe needs a champion, maybe needs a way to feel more comfortable getting back into the classroom. It's the most important thing in terms of learning. I need these kids. I need them in the game. It's the right thing for them. It's the right thing for keeping our economy growing with an opportunity for everybody. As they get older, we try and do everything we can in terms of internships and apprentice programs, making education relevant so they know why they're learning what they're learning in the classroom and see how it will go elsewhere. We're making progress. We have a way to go. And I want to just thank you, Miguel, for the incredible work you do as Secretary of Education. All is forgiven. Come back to Connecticut when you're done. President Biden, that ARPA money, I want you to know how it made a difference in terms of this LEAP program, giving a lot of kids an opportunity to get back to the classroom who might have otherwise lost that opportunity.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Governor Lamont. And it is my pleasure to introduce Governor Dan McKee. As a former mayor and lieutenant governor, and now as governor of Rhode Island, he has worked tirelessly to improve educational outcomes for students, support teachers, and foster partnerships that bridge the gap between schools and communities. He really gets it that education is key to Rhode Island's future, and he's really acted accordingly. And his presence today at the summit really highlights the importance of tackling these issues at the highest level of the state. And his work has really been a model for how we address absenteeism and promote student engagement, not just across Rhode Island, but really a model for other states across the country. So we are so grateful to have him here, Governor McKee.
Well, thanks, Nora. Thank you so much. And last time we had dinner together right here on the NGA, right with the president, the vice president, with their spouses. So, and we had a great conversation, which I think led us here today. And Secretary, thank you so much for all you do in the country, but also visiting Rhode Island. We've had 2 meetings, sidebar meetings, and I've shared some of the things that we're ready to share today. And I'm here to listen as much as to share. And I think that that's an important thing. So Rhode Island knows we need to be more competitive if we are going to grow our economy. And the same goes for our country. And Rhode Island is doing its part. If we're going to be able to compete globally, we need skilled workforce. If we're going to produce a skilled workforce and have a functional democracy, we have to improve education outcomes. If we're going to improve education outcomes, students need to be in school. Every home, every day, learning matters. That's the mantra. That's our motto for an initiative called Learn 365 RI. And a big part of Learn 365 RI is improving student attendance and addressing chronic absenteeism. We're measuring our success across 3 metrics. 1, improving student attendance. 2, improving reading and math skills, and making sure every high school graduate has a plan. Schools cannot do this work alone, and they shouldn't have to. Coming out of the pandemic, the workload is large, and we need to make sure we all jump in and help. That's why, from my seat as governor, I'm focused on bringing people together and having regular conversations about the importance of attending school every day. If you're feeling well, you should be in school. I'm a former basketball coach, and I believe in putting together a strong team to help you get the job done. That's why we've engaged educators, community members, faith leaders, judges, elected officials, the business community, and importantly, and I think most importantly, is engaging municipal leaders to help. I want to emphasize the role of municipal leaders in this work because I think it's what makes Rhode Island's approach unique. I'm a former mayor, so I understand firsthand the impact that engaging the entire community can have on a public and private education. We need to focus on all our students that live in our communities, and a mayor is positioned to do just that. Through Learn 365, we've had great success dealing and working with our municipal leaders. 38 out of 39 cities and towns have signed educational compacts with my office to work with us to be the best education system that we can be, and making sure that we meet or exceed every state in the country by 2030. I think that's a goal that every state should have. The work includes a campaign called Attendance Matters, Rhode Island. In Rhode Island, we have launched a video campaign featuring community leaders and influencers, sharing the message that it's cool to be in school, as our commissioner says. Our partners have placed op-eds in local papers. We've written letters and shared messaging with families so they can gain a better awareness about why attendance matters. We're involving business leaders, asking them to sponsor attendance incentives for their local school systems. And we have created a new statewide policy, groups of students, teachers, business leaders, labor, and elected officials to make recommendations on ways to address student absenteeism. Getting a robocall from your mayor telling you that attendance matters really moves the needle. Leading the Attendance Matters charge in our state is Education Commissioner Infante Green, and she's here with us today. Please recognize her. I want to emphasize that because you can't get this done from a governor's seat without a Commissioner of Education that is aligned with the efforts that bring communities together. So, Commissioner, thank you so much for your leadership. They've revamped our state's attendance dashboard and made it easy for any educator, any family, any person in our state, and I track it daily. And anybody who visits my office, I don't care what department they're from or what business world they come from, they see the attendance dashboard. I think that both Jeremy and Elizabeth confirm that. We can track that on a daily basis. What a powerful tool. I'm told that we may have the only one in the country with a public, real-time attendance dashboard that shows every school in the state Rhode Island. We've been at this work for just over a year. We've set goals for 2030. The municipal compacts that we've signed, we will be opening 20 municipal learning centers similar to that I did as a mayor 17 years ago. What are those municipal centers going to do? They're going to create this 365 opportunity. There's the name, Learn 365, for not only education, but learning. Not only jobs, but earnings, and not only health, but wellness. And I think that the Secretary mentioned the work that needs to be done on mental health on this whole issue. Over 90% of schools in our state are reporting fewer students chronically absent year over year, and nearly a third of the schools have reduced chronic absenteeism by 10 percentage points compared to the same time last year. The biggest thing I've learned in Rhode Island is that no one can get this work done by themselves. In our state, through the Learn 365 RI program, we are focused on ensuring that in every home, every day, learning matters. That is a culture shift that if you can make happen, you're going to pay huge dividends on that effort. Every home, every day, learning matters. So I thank you for having me here today. I'm encouraged to listen to all the things that are happening here in this room, but beyond this room. I encourage you, anybody who's listening in, if they want to see that dashboard and they want to see how we're doing on attendance, go to attendancemattersri.org. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Thank you, Governor McKee. Governor McKee, hearing you talk about clear messaging, culture shift, and tracking data, I am the latest member of your fan club, so thank you. Next up, we are going to hear from two state superintendents. First will be Dr. Eric Mackey, who is the leader of Alabama's public schools and a leader in driving a commitment to the whole child. So we've heard from Dr. Mackey before and delighted to hear from you again. Dr. Mackey, over to you.
Good morning. It's so good to be a part of this. It's good to be a part of this big discussion. I want to say especially a real thank you to Governors Lamont and McKee for taking the lead. We know Governor McKee said you can't do this without the support of a commissioner, and certainly the commissioner in Rhode Island and I are good friends, and she does an excellent job leading the work in that state. And I would say the same from our perspective, though. We cannot do this without the support of a strong governor. Our governor here, Governor Kay Ivey, pushes hard to make sure that we are getting children in school and we're continuing to connect with families. And that's why I'd like to take just a few minutes to talk about many of the things that have been mentioned this morning, certainly by Secretary Cardona, who we greatly appreciate, really focuses on this. And he certainly makes sure that the state chiefs are connected with the importance of school attendance. We work with attendance work. We appreciate the work that they continue to do. And so I don't want to reiterate some of the things that have already been said and some of the things that will be said in our excellent panel that's coming up, and what Superintendent Jenner from Indiana also I know has some things to talk about. But I want to specifically focus on a few things that we're doing here that we think are happening, particularly focused around connections with families. We also have some programs where we're working with district attorneys. We're working with our Principals and Administrators Association. We're working with our State Teachers Association. We're working with some local groups, one called Peer Helpers, that is a part of the Jennifer Claire Moore Foundation, which is located in the southern end of our state. And they now have expanded all across the state to work with schools and support in mental health, and also reaching out now into supporting schools in attendance matters. We work with our District Attorneys Association through something called the Helping Families Initiative, and we have about half the district attorneys in the state also working with us. Now, that's kind of a two-edged sword, because we don't want families to feel criminally threatened, but we do have sometimes when district attorneys have to reach out and be a little bit threatening to parents that, hey, you have to get your kids in school. But what we've learned is, just like a call from a principal or a call from a teacher or a call from an attendance officer, it does make a difference. With some parents, a call from the district attorney's office makes a difference too. Not a threatening call, not we're going to put you in jail, but look, getting your children into school matters, and we need to all be working together to get children in school. So we found that with some families that works. We also found that working with our public housing authorities in the state has made a great deal of difference. One of our leading systems in attendance and getting students back into school is Birmingham City. They've been recognized in several national publications for the work they've done. And Dr. Sullivan and I talk together very often. And one of the things he was able to do is to work with the city's housing authority, because they also want their student residents in school every day. And so they've done some things like create lotteries for perfect attendance. They've reached out not just to children, but also to those moms and dads and family members to say, look, what can we do to support you in getting your students into school every day? Because we want those students in school, we want those students learning, but also it keeps them obviously from having the issue of dealing sometimes with children who are left maybe at home while mom's away. They don't want unattended children there in the apartments. And so it works for everybody to connect with families and to make sure that families know we're supporting them. We want their children at school. Now, our numbers in Alabama for chronic absenteeism right now, they're high. They're higher than we want to be. About 18% of our students were chronically absent last year. But we do feel pretty good about the fact that we're back to where we were in 2018, actually. And so we do think it's working. Parents are getting their students back into school, but for those 18% that were chronically absent, we're deeply concerned. Every day missed is an important day that a student doesn't get the opportunity to learn. Our theme around here is every child, every chance, every day, because we believe it's our moral and ethical responsibility to give opportunities to children, and that we do that for every child, no matter the circumstances, and we do that every day that we come to work. We know that every day a child misses school, they have missed some opportunity. Now, doesn't mean it's an opportunity lost forever. It doesn't mean it's an opportunity we can't make up, but it does mean that they have lost an opportunity on that day to learn, to be engaged, to be a part of the school community. To maybe catch up on something that they would not have gotten otherwise. And so we need children in school each and every day. And then the last thing I just want to mention is about our great work that I have to brag on our teachers and our superintendents with, and that's what we're doing in the summer. We are offering unprecedented summer reading and math camps to help students get caught up, to help them recover from that academic loss that we saw during the 2021 school year, but also just we plan to continue it from now on because it gives parents somewhere to put their children in the summer, and it gives children who are behind an opportunity to catch up, and it gives children who are not behind an opportunity to accelerate learning during summer. We're focusing really on the early grades right now, but we just this year have rolled out an initiative to expand summer learning into the middle school. And we hope to, with our community partners, continue to expand that into middle school and high school. But again, one of the things we've had to focus on is getting children into school. So we've learned that even though the program works, we need people there, we need students there every day. And about 25% of our students are also missing significant numbers of days in summer programming when they sign up for the programming. So they're not required. Why are they doing that? Well, one of the big things we've learned is transportation. Moms and dads maybe want to sign their children up. They want to give them another opportunity in the summer, but they can't get them to school. So how do we offer better and more transportation? We're working with our legislature on that. We've been able to offer a great deal of transportation across the state, but we still have students who have a hard time getting to summer programming. And then we've even extended that, and we've learned that during the school year, we have some students where transportation is an issue, maybe for staying after school and doing other kinds of programs. So we continue to work on those things. We continue to focus with families. And this year we're planning to expand even more. We are working right now on a public relations campaign to reach out to those families again, to try to create that community connection with our parents and with our families, and to make sure that they know how important it is, but also to make sure that they know how we want their children to be at school. We think that's a big part of this puzzle, is that parents can't feel like it's just an obligation. As a parent, we all know we have an obligation to get our students in school, but But it's not just an obligation, it's an opportunity. And the school really wants me there, and the school wants my child there, and the school wants a connection with my family. That school to family connection is so important to what we do. And that's been our focus. We think it's one of the reasons we've had a great deal of success across the state with student attendance. And it's something we plan to double down on in the coming year. Because again, even that 18% that we have that are chronically absent, we want to touch every one of their lives. We want them not to be at home, but to be at school. And again, thank you, Nira, thank you, Secretary Cardona, for leading this effort, for continuing the push, and thank you for having me on today. I'm very excited about the future and what we're going to be able to do together.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mackey. It's great to hear about the many approaches you are taking and the progress you are making in Alabama.
Thank you.
Next up, we are going to hear from another state superintendent. We read an article about Indiana's dashboard, and we're really excited, and we're those kinds of people. And so we were very excited to invite Dr. Katie Jenner, who is the state superintendent from Indiana. Dr. Jenner, over to you. Hang on, Dr. Jenner, we have an audio problem. Oh, you're muted, in fact.
Do you know the audio problem is totally on me? So I think we should be fixed now. I was just expressing my thanks to Secretary Cardona and team for your invitation today and also for your focus on chronic absenteeism. Just to level set really quickly, Indiana, we have about 19.3% to be exact, and I'll tell you why I'm being exact here shortly. 19.3% of our students are missing about a month of school. And so you think about all the investment in our schools, all of the work of our teachers and our school leaders to overcome some of the learning challenges. We have to do better in supporting and making sure our kids are in school. In Indiana, we're seeing an inverted bell curve, which is pretty interesting. We're seeing the highest rates of chronic absenteeism in kindergarten through second grade, and then it goes down a bit in the middle school grade, and then back up again 9th through 12th grade. And that further emphasizes our focus, of course, because missing that foundational period in K through 2 when the reading and numeracy skills are being developed. And then at the high school level, a lot of our conversation has been around how do we make the 4 years of high school more valuable for students, because what we're hearing from some of our high school students about why they're not coming is they don't always see the connection and the why. So how do we make high school more valuable? But let me get to the specific tactics that we've discussed or that I've been asked to share today, and a specific call out to Governor McKee, Rhode Island, and Helica and team. I hear that you have an attendance dashboard as well. So I'd love to just quickly share with you. Are you able to see this?
We are, you're good.
Okay. I realize there's a delay because you probably had to run back up to the podium. So thank you, whomever did that. So I just wanted to showcase our attendance dashboard. And so this allows us to see school attendance data by student, by grade, by school, immediately. Daily, we get this data. And then the other thing I heard Rhode Island mention, which I think is very, very important because we're focused on quality education for all children, which means every school being on here is important. So this includes our traditional public, our charter schools, our non-public, all of the various attendance types you see at the top. And then it also shows longitudinal data that can be sorted and disaggregated in a number of ways, just with the click of a button by all student populations. And so presently, we are able to do this, by the way, for those wondering, through EdFi compatibility from the local district straight to the state of Indiana. And To give you a sense of hope for those of you who don't have this, just a few years back when we were all experiencing the pandemic at its highest, we definitely did not have anything like this. And so as we were getting our schools back going again, I mean, I was even at times calling schools just to touch base and check in, which was again, the huge shift that we knew we needed to do, which is build something in real time. So presently, at the state level, everyone is able to see this. We're getting ready to release this to all of our schools and local communities so that they can see schools across the state. And really, we work together to hold each other accountable to chronic absenteeism. I also will mention, let me go back to the screen here. I also will mention the other component which connects straight to this real-time attendance. We are building out an early warning dashboard. We heard this loud and clear from our schools, our teachers, even our parents and families. And the early warning dashboard or early warning indicators will actually be connected to indianagps.com, which is indianagps.com stands for Indiana Graduates Prepared to Succeed. It is our state database with all of our longitudinal data connecting K-12, higher ed, and workforce. You can see that for that longitudinal piece for every school in the state. But it will be connected to that so that, again, our schools can see very specifically down to the student level who is most at risk, and we'll be able to do some predictive analytics early. But things like attendance, advanced coursework grades, disciplinary actions, high school credits, a number of different indicators are being used to build that out. But again, attendance is a primary focus. So there are a couple of quick tactics, and I was told I only had like 4 minutes. So I'm trying to follow the rules. So I'll pass it back to the team at the White House. Thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jenna. That was a wonderful presentation. Great to see. Now we are going to hear from Dr. Bob Balfance at the Johns Hopkins University Everyone Graduate Center. If you are in education policy, you know there are a handful of people in academia who work really hard to deliver data in ways that you can use, and Bob is one of them. And he's going to have a wonderful panel with Hetty Chang and district leaders. Thanks.
Sorry, just looking for the click.
Apologies, I made a mistake.
Okay.
Yeah. Secretary Cardona, who has done many events, kindly said to me I had gotten things out of order. So I am going to, and this in fact has happened to Isaiah Figueroa twice now today, that we've gotten him out of order, so I'm going to get it right now. Isaiah, it was wonderful to see you in the video. We are excited to hear from you and from your mom. We are grateful to have you here from the Bronx, New York. Hear a little bit about your actual lived experiences. We know your dad, Pedro, is also here, so let's have you up. Apologies and thank you.
Hello, everyone. Well, you already know my name. I'm Isaiah Figueroa, and I'm really grateful to share this opportunity to share a bit about my story. So the support system at my school, along with the incredible team at Children's Day, has been crucial for me, and the support has honestly made all the difference for me. The social worker in particular recommended me some amazing apps that helped me cope with stress and stay grounded throughout my day. And also being able to access support whenever I needed it, whether it was to manage stress or just to take another breather, really honestly helped me. And thanks to their guidance and encouragement, my attendance skyrocketed this year from 21% to 92%. And I couldn't have done it without them. My mom's up next, by the way.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lisette, Isaiah's mom. Watching his journey unfold has been both challenging and inspiring. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of the support we receive from the school and children's aid staff. They went above and beyond, and not just focusing on Isaiah's academics, but genuinely caring about his well-being. They were there for us every step of the way, checking in regularly and collaborating with us to find the best ways to support Isaiah. They weren't just educators and counselors, they became our trusted partners in navigating this difficult time. Their dedication and compassion made all the difference for Isaiah and for our family. Isaiah has been part of the Children's Aid since he was in kindergarten, and we're incredibly grateful for their unwavering support at every stage. Thank you.
All right. Good morning. So the question is, how do we provide supports to everyone like the supports Isaiah got? How do we make what Isaiah got the norm for all kids that need support to be in school every day? What I want to share with you very briefly here is an action plan that Hetty Chang from Attendance Works and I put together to sort of say, what does the evidence say we need to do to really move the dial on chronic absenteeism? And first and foremost, what it tells us is we have to have a comprehensive, systematic approach. The scale and intensity of this challenge requires that. If we just have one-off strategies or just bet the ranch on doing one thing well, we're not going to move the needle. And as you're going to hear today from the districts, you heard already from our superintendents and our governors, when that happens, when we have a comprehensive approach, improvement is really possible. And once we believe that improvement is really possible, the next thing we have to do is know our challenge. And sometimes we skip over this because we're like, yeah, it's a big problem. We sort of know why kids don't come to school. Let's get to solutions. But we know actually the reason kids don't come to school varies by time and by place and by circumstance and by grade level. And different communities face different challenges. So we do have to take the time to understand why. And there's basically 4 big categories of reason kids aren't in school. And what we need to do locally is figure out how big is the scale in each of those. So where do we have to help figure out our solutions? So barriers are things keeping you out of school. There are many barriers. But there's a couple from the pandemic that are really sort of rose to the top as sort of fresh challenges. One is kids now doing sibling and elder care because of the tragic loss of their caregivers and older supportive adults in the pandemic. So that's falling more and more in adolescents to take on that role, and that will pull them out of school. Also, teenagers stepped up during the pandemic and went to work. They were the food delivery service folks that kept us fed, and they came to like those jobs, particularly in states where the minimum wage was raised. And they want to keep them. And that's a challenge to go to work and school at the same time. And they're actually now, their siblings are now interested in that as what's happening. Some kids, it's not a barrier, it's an aversion. I don't want to go to school, because I think if I'm in school, something bad may or will happen, and I want to avoid that. And one that's really popped, right, is this social anxiety I think you've heard about. And just think about especially the kids caught in the transition. Think about the kid that didn't really have much pre-K and kindergarten and went right to first grade. Think about the 4th grader that was really thriving in school, spent 5th grade isolated, and goes back to a sort of chaotic first year in a middle school where they know nobody, and the kids seem sort of judgy, right? That's where social anxiety comes from. And other kids are like, what's the point? Nobody knows me, nobody cares. Why am I sitting here in the rain waiting for the bus to come? I should just go home and be dry. Or, I'm going to get the same job whether I just pass my courses or get good grades. I think I can pass them on the 4-day-a-week plan. And then there's misconceptions. I didn't realize. Turns out parents and kids tend to underestimate how much school they miss by almost half. Because we think very short term, we think last month. We don't actually go back and do the math for the whole year. And we know from the pandemic that we're still confused about when to send kids to school when they're sick. And we know that in some cases people are saying, like, maybe I can succeed at school by not being there because I can just do my assignments online. So those are some new misconceptions to work through. All right, we know our problem, now what? We have to have a comprehensive plan to solve it. And there's 4 key things here, right? 1, we got to put much more work on prevention. Far too many of our schools now have over 200 chronically absent kids. When a school has 200 chronically absent kids, it overwhelms traditional response systems. We have to drive that number down through prevention. We have great strategies: increased school connectedness, family engagement you've heard about, messaging campaigns, nudge letters. And I just want to spend 1 minute deep dive on school connectedness, because this is the closest we have to a universal prevention measure for everything, right? Kids that are connected to school do better in school, have better physical and mental health, and engage in fewer risky behaviors. To be connected to school, it's 4 pretty simple, basic things. You have to believe there's an adult who knows and cares about you as a person. You need a supportive peer group. You have to believe at least occasionally you're doing something meaningful. And you have to feel welcome for who you are. And these are all things that schools can influence, improve, and measure. So this is where I think we as a nation have to double down and really work hard to make sure every kid has those connection supports. And that alone will drive down that number. We got to build up our problem-solving capacity, because there's some real problems there, and we got to figure them out. We got to get to root cause. To do that, as you've heard, we really have to engage our students and families, like Isaiah and his mom, and figuring out what's the best solution, because they're the best located to know that, not us guessing from a distance. We have to have these early warning systems, or MTSS, or student success systems, like our state chief from Indiana talked about, to be sort of the air traffic controller of this work. And you're going to hear about success coaches and mentors from some of our districts that are coming up. And finally, mitigation. We sometimes don't quite put this together with attendance. But it takes a while to solve these problems. They're real problems. They don't get fixed overnight. We don't go from a kid not attending to attending every day in 1 week. So we have to, and as we heard, many of our states are doing this. We have to have this mitigation, from tutoring to summer. And the one I heard that was over here from our student, we have to do much more of, is this peer mentoring to support social reintegration, right? That's an easy, scalable thing that can have a big impact. All right, finally, we have to have teams to organize all this work. Too many of our schools and districts are way underpowered because they're scaled for pre-pandemic. Many schools have 1 or 2 people on their attendance team. Many districts have 1 person in their attendance office at the district level. We need cross-group teams of 8 to 10 at both levels to manage the magnitude of what we're doing. And they need that actionable data. And it was so exciting to hear what Rhode Island and Indiana are doing. That's the example everybody else has to follow. But I have to tell you the truth, most people don't have that kind of actionable data right now. And that's a place we really have to also dig into. All right, finally, to do this, we got to gather our resources. 1, take stock. Schools and districts actually have more capacity than they often realize, because all that capacity is siloed. We have attendance here, behavior there, academics here. They've got to all be talking together about how we get kids to school and make them thrive. We have to integrate attendance into everything. It should be part of science of reading, CTE, school improvement. And once that's done, we have to realize we're going to need some strategic partnerships. We're going to have some holes. And this is actually where the National Partnership for Student Success can play a nice role of support role. All right, so to bring us home and turn it over to my dear friend, Hetty Chang from Attendance Work, who's done more than anyone to make this an issue and how to solve it. I just want to say welcome, and she's going to bring on some districts to show how this work is being done.
Thank you so much. What an amazing day. So, this is work that takes a collective to move. Everyone in this room has made this possible. And I also want to express a deep appreciation, especially to Secretary Cardona and his team and the White House, for bringing this issue up in the way that we have to shine a light like never before. And Bob, thank you for that amazing presentation, summarizing in really short time what we need to do. And I want to say that, I want to start with this: improvement is possible. When I started this work 18 years ago, what I realized, the challenge then, and it's a challenge now that's even more, was people thought, I can't address attendance. That's just what happens out there, and didn't reflect on all the things we know we can do to make a difference. And this panel is about where the rubber hits the road, because what ultimately, whether we make a difference, is what happens at the district level, what happens in schools, what happens in the direct interaction between kids and families. Isaiah and his mother illustrated that perfectly. And what you have is an example of how this can happen in so many different settings. Our school districts here range from a school district of less than 1,500 kids to about 70,000. They're rural, they're urban. We have some that are majority African American, majority white, majority Latino. We've got the whole mix, ranging from 55 to 100% free and reduced price lunch. And each of these districts has been able to reduce their chronic absence by about 0.25% from before they were, some a little bit more. But I will also say, this is a sign. This is not work that will happen overnight. And some of these districts started with some incredibly high levels post-pandemic, but that's our reality. And what we need to do is take a long-term approach, because this is not going to happen overnight, and we're going to have the will and the persistence to persevere. And it is my pleasure to be able to have our representatives. And I'm going to start with Dr. Shade Harris, Chief Engagement Officer for the Richmond Public Schools. And Shade, this will help you. Sorry, Shade, I am so sorry. Names are so important. But Shade Harris has been doing an amazing job. So Shade, take it away.
Thank you so much, Hetty, and thank you for having me here. When we think about our approach to increasing attendance in Richmond Public Schools, it started by creating a system that really placed families at the center. And when you do that, the first thing we had to do is reframe attendance through an engagement lens. So that meant that we are moving from seeing engagement as an add-on, something that happens after the fact, to an essential part of teaching and learning. And when we did that, we moved away from more truancy approaches, actions, activities, positions that were very punitive in nature, and really shifted to thinking about chronic absenteeism, where we were looking at any day a student missed because of its impact on academic instruction. We really re-emphasize positive strategies and community partnerships. So I had the privilege of creating the first ever Office of Engagement using Dr. Karen Mapp's dual capacity building framework for strong school partnerships. The first thing we had to do was really define, what does engagement mean? And a lot of times when you hear that word engagement, they're not talking about engagement. They're talking about involvement still. You're still talking about leading with your mouth. You're leading and telling people what you want them to do. We had to define engagement as truly leading with your ears. We are listening to the hopes, the dreams, the wants of our families, and we're designing a system to meet those needs. So we said engagement was about building relationships. It had to be linked to learning, supporting advocacy, affirming differences. And although involvement can be good, it's still that very, we are here to serve you. We wanted to move from that to what does true partnership look like. And the difference between just service and partnership is you have to share power, right? Like, that's a huge shift, and people don't want to share power, right? So that being able to name that that's actually what we're trying to do was critical. So in thinking about the system, in any system, you know you have to quantify, right? Like, how are we measuring it? And we too also have a dashboard, but what we weren't doing, and what I don't see a lot of, is we had an engagement dashboard. So we are quantifying our engagement. So I can tell you right now how many home visits, how many successful, unsuccessful contacts. We have lots of people reaching out to families, and to the point earlier of, you have all these capacities, but they're not talking to each other. So our engagement dashboard gave us a platform where we're hearing those needs of our families, and we're being able to align what are some of the key things that we are hearing. So after the pandemic, we were soaring at almost 40%. By really codifying, one, what are our engagement practices, but are they working? Home visits, outreach, we love you here visits, we've been able to reduce to about 18% right now. And what that means is we've gained over 90,000 hours of academic instruction. So when we tell the story, instead of talking about what we lost, talk about what we've gained. Being able to name that and talk about the increased academic instruction really led us to continued success. And ultimately, what we were trying to do is we wanted to build a community of love, leading with our ears, listening to the needs of our families. And one of those needs was around housing. So knowing that, we were able to be strategic with partners, an organization called Housing Families First, because we had hundreds of our families who were living in motels. They had enough for month to month, but they didn't have enough for that first month's down payment and the last month's down payment to get into something more stable. So when we're looking at resources and you have all these partners, we're able to say, no, we want you to wrap around housing. And as a result of that, we gave direct finances to families and have housed over 130 families over the past 2 years in stable housing, which significantly impact our decrease in chronic absenteeism. We were able to really focus on what were those needs and build a system where we could honor that. And lastly, our approach was about leading with love. Bell Hooks defines love as a combination of care, commitment, knowledge, respect, and trust. And if that was our goal, if that is what we were aspiring to do, we had to recognize, and I still remember vividly talking to two moms, and one of them said, Sade, you told me not to come to school for 2 years, right? Now I'm back, and what's going on? Like, we had to rebuild those relationships, especially with Richmond. We had a whole virtual year after the pandemic. And then we had moms who said, you know, I've been burned before. Like, there was some distrust there. So what better way to be able to name our intentions with our families than we love you here, right? So we were able to wrap around that slogan and be able to make sure that our families, our students knew that we love you here each and every day. We value your experience. So in closing, in Richmond Public Schools, we've been able to create a system that places families at the center, that really allows us to prioritize relationships, track our engagement, and most importantly, lead with love. Thank you.
Thank you so much today. I also think what you illustrate is how this isn't linear. This is cyclical. So when Bob talked about know your challenge and organize your response, part of what you've done is align your resources so we build relationship, so we actually know what the challenge is. Is it housing? Is it transportation? And then that helps us to refine our response. So thank you so much. Tyree Pollard. Tyree is the Director of Whole Child and Community Partnerships for the Columbus Public Schools in Ohio. Tyree, you're on.
Thank you, Mrs. Hetty. Wonderful, Dr. Harris, as you talked about just this community and what it takes to kind of really change the narrative and have an impact on attendance. So at Columbus City Schools, as you see up on the PowerPoint, we have several different key elements. We have our two that I dig into a little bit later on, but what we really got into, first of all, we had to really name the problem. You can't solve the problem until you actually name the problem. Our superintendent, our leadership really saw that we had a void with students coming to school and really put some action behind it. So that leadership up top, having people knowing to go, a non-cheating goal moving forward was something critical to us. As we did that, we continued our education around crime absenteeism. What does it really mean? What does it mean when you say it's unexcused or excused? I called in today. This doesn't count. I came to school late. Just really explaining to our stakeholders that, hey, when you're missing school, you're missing an opportunity to learn every day, especially after the pandemic, really putting that in place. Next, we had to really get our education together. We had to educate our staff from our leadership all the way down to our building staff, having these meetings, making it important, having attendance on every agenda, talking about our strategies in the building, making sure that we're moving in the same direction. Next, another key element we did was every school had an attendance goal that they selected, because when you have that goal, you have ownership in that goal. So every school has an attendance goal, and we have one for the district too. That's an alignment. So now we have the top talking to the bottom, and we're moving in unison. And that's what it takes to attack this monster, because it's a team effort. Finally, we had to look at ourselves and change our policies. As Dr. Harris said, we had a lot of punitive things in our letters going home. We were talking at people and not with them. Once again, we were talking at people and not with them. If you're going to move this, you need to have a sense of synergy and togetherness as we move forward with that. So, our team structure. So, at Columbus City Schools, I'm a director of Whole Child Community Partnership, and we sit in the Office of Whole Child Supports, that holistic point of the child, the spirit, the mind, the body, and the soul. And the part of the department, we have an executive director. We also have our school social workers, who are really the heartbeat to make this magic happen, because they're interfacing with families at tremendous times, whether they're tier 2 or tier 3 with some of these other issues. We have our school counselors who are part of this process too as well. We have restorative practitioners, because we really want to arm our students and our staff with tools outside the building to kind of help them move in the right direction. We have our student attendance support specialists, who were created to really be parent and student facing, to have these conversations about, hey, why are you not coming to school? Matter of fact, what do you need from us? Is there a caring adult in the building? Do you have these things happening for you? So that team structure is huge when you're trying to build this type of system to attack this huge, huge element that we have for chronic absenteeism. So now I'm gonna get into some of our 2 key levers that we did at Columbus City School to kind of help us move the needle. At Columbus City Schools, we have something called PBIS teams, positive behavior interventions and supports. This is something that every school has to have, and they meet twice a week. You know, in education, we have 1,000 meetings, ABC, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, TLC, too many meetings. So, and we're burning out our staff who are doing the real work. So we had to create a space, use our existing teams, and integrate attendance in a meaningful way. So we have meetings twice a week, they're an hour. We have a set agenda, because you gotta have an agenda, because you know with us educators, we get to talking and we'll miss the whole point of the meeting. So you have a set agenda with tier 1, tier 2 strategies, really talking about that process. And not only that, we educated our staff on how to use this agenda. We had these online trainings, in-person trainings, to really integrate this in a meaningful way. And part of this team, as Doctor was talking about, they look at behavior, attendance, and academics. And all these teams, you have key stakeholders from the community. You have the building principal, because you have to have some type of power to move it. You need power in the building to move these issues. You have a community member. We have our family ambassadors. You have a school social worker. You have community partners. You have school counselors. You have all the people at the table making the decision. So when we come to these tier 2 and tier 3 interventions, we have the people there to solve those issues. So that's going to be critical. And that's part of the concept that we moved to that really helped us move the needle at Columbus City School. Up top, you see our dashboard. I think everybody has a dashboard. So we have a dashboard too as well. You know, we got to keep the nerve going. But what our dashboard is, for me, it's 3 clicks. If I got to click more than 3 times, it's too much. So we created something that kind of, you can drill down from grade to student to types of absences to really look at what's happening, because we got to get this stuff in real time. So 3 clicks for all you software developers. 3 clicks is what we want in education. Can't be having 5 and 6 clicks. Lastly, we get to our leveraging partnerships. And I think when it comes to this part with Columbus City School is that we acknowledged our problem, then we did a need analysis. What do we need from our community partners? We needed mentorship, and we needed their social capital. This is a huge issue. How do we have talking about this when you go into your pediatrician? Hey, are you coming to school today? When you go into the rec center, hey, are you at school today? When you're going to your faith organizations, really having these conversations to kind of spread this narrative across the board. That was part of our need analysis. Also, who are your key partnerships? externally, but more importantly, internally. Like I said, this is not an isolated sport. So we're here, we have a centralized attendance team built up of multiple peoples from operations, from transportation, to central enrollment, to academics, to behavior. We have these bi-weekly meetings to talk about, hey, what are our district problems from a holistic level? And then we cascade that down. So we have to cross that line to really have that put in place. And then externally, who are your partners? Do your missions align? Are they really in it for the right reasons? You know, hey, here's our goal for attendance. Are you able to do this? Because, hey, 3 T's, time, talent, and treasure. Can you provide those to us? Your time, your talent, or your treasures. We need those for our students. So have an alignment with that, really understand what we have to do across the board. And as we continue to go down, we define those goals and expectations. Hey, our goals at Columbus City Schools to be at 50%. And we're there right now. About 3 years ago, we're at 75%. Now, I'm not no mathematician, but 25% reduction shows that we're moving in the right direction and doing something properly. But do you understand what our goals are holistically, and can you help us? Here's the clear communications. And then you go to open communication. Hey, this is not us taking anything from you, but how do we help each other? How do we have these conversations around synergy? How do we have an alignment to make sure that we're meeting your goal, but more importantly, all importantly, you meeting our goal too as well, and really having that constant back and forth conversation. And then the mutual interest. Having a mutual interest, really putting stuff on paper, and then you're following through with these concepts over and over again. Up here you see we have a Attendance Awareness Month that we do every month in the state of Ohio for the month of September. We're going over that, really looking at that. We also do something called pop-up parties. So at these pop-up parties, we show up at the schools, we have a DJ, we have the crew cat, we have our partnership, and it's a whole party where all you gotta do is show up to school. We recognize good attendance and improved attendance. We celebrate how to get to school on time, and really make sure everybody's really having an impactful moment and kind of move the needle. And we saw that when we did those pop-up parties, we saw a 3% reduction that following week just from showing up because, hey, they might come to school today. The crew cat might be there with Columbus Crew. We got to show up. So we're just truly excited about the work we've been doing. We have a lot of ways to go, but we're proud of our progress right now.
Tyree, thank you so much. Call out just a couple quick things. One is some folks are starting from really high levels, but you got to start from where you are, and then we'll get to where we want to be. I also just want to say, you said, everyone's got an attendance dashboard. I've been at this long enough that was not the case. When I started this 18 years ago, we had one state, it was Maryland, that kind of had a dashboard on this, and there was no one else, and there was almost never a school level. We now have dashboards. The question is, do people know how to use them? And then make sure they can align resources. And thank you for illustrating that, and I think we're going to hear that point even more as we continue to Scott Hale. Scott, take it away from Greater Johnstown School District, and Scott is a principal, so bringing in another perspective.
Thank you, Hattie. So for us in Johnstown, we really were looking at the data, the 3 through 8 testing, 9 through 12 testing, graduation rate, and we noticed one key thing that was really the struggle for us that was leading to not the greatest results that we would like, and that was chronic absenteeism. So in that year of learning that we were looking at chronic absenteeism, we looked at our approach, and we had to be very critical of ourselves in looking at our approach. And when we heard from everyone else, we took the punitive approach as well. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. We were sending letters that, quite frankly, were not able to allow us to build relationships. And we were threatening Child Protective Services. We talked about, with our local legislators, talking about not allowing students to get their licenses or their permits. So that really created more of a divide between us and families, and that is something that we knew wasn't working. Then came our administrative team getting together with Hetty and the Attendance Works crew, and they were so helpful to us. So it really took us and our administrative team getting together and really focusing on how can we improve attendance in a way that will benefit families, benefit students, benefit teachers, and benefit the whole community, because we know that the school is the hub of every community. So we really wanted to make sure that we were doing that with our administrative team. So being a smaller city and rural school, we looked at our resources in the community, and we don't have as many resources as larger school districts. So we had to figure out how we were going to do that as a smaller school and put our feet on the ground and be able to do that. And we looked at our resources and our partnerships, and we do have some community partnerships that do come into the school. However, we realized that it's going to be the people in the building doing the work. And that is the heart of what we have done. It is our teachers, it's our secretaries, it's our students, it's our teaching assistants, our staff in the building. So we created our attendance team, as many of the folks up here on stage have. And in our attendance team, we make sure we have focused responsibility. So it's not just a group of people who get together, it is a group of people with focused responsibility. People who focus on the data, people who focus on the celebrations, who focus on the community, who focus on the outreach. We have so many responsibilities amongst the people on our attendance team. And then the real true heart and the true love, as we've heard, is from our success mentors. So in our district, we have what's called Success Mentors. In my building at the Johnstown High School, we have approximately 25 Success Mentors. With 25 Success Mentors, we have mentees. We allow our Success Mentors to have probably 3 to 5 mentees. We want them to be focused on each student and understanding their story and making sure that they understand who they have and who they can help support. So the responsibility of the Success Mentors, first, we're looking at the who. The who for Success Mentors can be anybody who works within the district. We have some of our secretaries, TAs. We've had Board of Education members reach out to be Success Mentors. We have many people within our school community who have become Success Mentors for our students. And what are they doing? They are doing a plethora of things where they're meeting with their students and learning how to connect with that student individually. That's the most important thing. Notice that I stress individually. We can't take an umbrella approach to certain individuals. We have to make sure that we are making that pointed story and understanding that child and where they're struggling and how we can help support them. So that's what they are doing. They are meeting with them daily. They're meeting with them weekly. They're talking about academics. They're talking about life. They are meeting with them in so many different ways and avenues to make sure they're supporting that student. If you take a look up here at our success plan, it's simple. I know we heard about this earlier. Their families are more focused on what happened within the last week. We are pulling up the calendar. If you look at that calendar and you look at the students and we sit that student down as a whole and say, look at your calendar. These are the days you have missed. You may think you only missed 2 days last week, but if you look at from September, you're up to about 15 absences. How can we help support you? So that success plan that we have put in place for the students has really been eye-opening. Most of the students will tell you, wow, I didn't know that I missed that many days of school. So when they have this calendar right in front of them, it is powerful. It is absolutely powerful. And then the last thing our success mentors do is they celebrate, and they celebrate the heck out of these students. And that is K through 12. We celebrate them. We celebrate their successes being there. We want them there. We want our students there. We also put something in place with our team. We have a SEAL team. We call that our social emotional academic learning team that helps support all of our students. And our superintendent, our district superintendent, has been integral in adding that to our school district to make sure we are supporting our students. And at the end, it's really about communication. How are you communicating this with your families? How are you communicating this with your students, with your faculty and staff? I make sure attendance is something I talk about monthly, on a monthly basis at our faculty meetings, and make sure we're addressing it. We meet with our teams frequently, and it's really having that communication. And the communication, as you can see, not punitive, making sure it's not punitive, making sure we're providing family with facts so they know why missing 10% or more of the school year is a detriment to them in their academics. And we also strive for 5 or less, strive for 5 or fewer. We want 5 or fewer absences from our students. We want them in the building. We want to see them. We want to know that they're safe, and we want to know that they have support. So when we look at what we have done over the past couple of years with our attendance team and our success mentors, we have seen K through 12, our students who are our mentees, 80% of them from last year to this year to date, 80% of them have improved on their attendance. So 80% of our students have improved upon their attendance. And we know that's not perfect. We know the magic number is 18 in New York State. However, we've seen students from 70 absences go down to 30 absences. For me, that's a win. According to chronic absenteeism, that may not be a win, but for me, that is a win. And that's what we are happy about, and we are going to continue to see improvement. We are not perfect. We will never be perfect, but we will continue to strive to improve on attendance. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just want to, first of all, Scott, that is absolutely a win. We start from where we are and we move forward. And I just want to point out something, which is the power of sharing across communities. There are a lot of folks in this room who started with Success Mentors. I'm looking at our folks from Children's Aid. Bob, this was really, it started in New York City. And what you can see is 10 years later, we have people iterating and moving that and advancing it and making it their own. Strive for Less Than 5. We got Grand Rapids in the room. That's where this came from. People don't even know the origins of these ideas, but when they're good and they work, we should adopt, steal, use it in all ways, because that's what will make a difference with our kids. And last but not least, we have Albuquerque Public Schools in New Mexico, and we have both Mark Garcia, the Associate Superintendent for College and Career Readiness, and we have Brian Garcia, not related, but Garcia is a common, a favorite name, who is our Community Development Specialist, talking about what they're doing in Albuquerque Public Schools, New Mexico. Please.
Good morning, everybody. What a privilege to be here today, and really focusing on what we collectively can do to improve attendance in our schools. And I think Albuquerque Public Schools is unique in that in the last 2 years, our Board of Education met with the community to set out to figure out what the values are of the community and what they wanted to see in student outcomes for Albuquerque Public Schools. And through that process, our Board of Education identified 4 goals. Goal 1, to improve 3rd grade literacy. Goal 2, to improve math literacy and proficiency in 8th grade. Goal 3, college and career readiness. And goal 4, habits and mindsets most associated with life success. Pre-pandemic, our district was using early warning systems, looking at the traditional attendance, behavior, course performance. The reason I invited Brian Garcia to be with us is really also leveraging key partnerships and frameworks already in your district. What we know about student success systems is that the best student success system you can have for your community is the one that you create. So moving into our new board goals, we knew that the first thing we needed to get a handle on and improve was student attendance. If we're going to improve on any of our goals and our outcomes, we needed to improve attendance. So what we did in short order, through partnership out of a grant through the state with Grad Partnership, we reconvened our district's PLC in regards to EWS early warning systems. We merged early warning systems to now be student success systems, because what we know is that if students don't feel connected to an adult or their peers on campus, that's an indicator that they're not going to come to school. So through that work, all high schools, 21, no school is too big or too small to be part of this work, convened monthly, looking at student success systems, relentlessly looking at data and identifying those students who didn't feel a sense of belonging at their school and providing interventions at the right time for the right students. I'm going to pass it on to Brian now.
We're going to team up on this for sure. Thank you so much, everyone. Pleasure to be here. Saludes a todos de Nuevo Mexico. And so I think I broke some rules. We broke some rules with this slide in terms of how busy it is. So I'll just call myself out right then and there. But to really see the letter C emerge throughout the dialogue today in reference to the whole child, and seeing the testimony from Mama and Isaiah, and really seeing how communication is clear from some of our college, our panel mates, celebrations, and the cool cats and the crew coming to the school. But really, in reference to this really busy slide, looking at the concept of collaboration in terms of what Mark talked about in reference to the EWS PLC, but also clarity in reference to the Emerging Stronger plan through Albuquerque Public Schools with our goals and our guardrails. And then also to our collaboration in reference to the expanded nature of that term. So as you work your way around this slide that happens to be our leadership framework that houses our strategic priorities for our district, it's a multi-pronged approach. And so we've got a systemic response. We've got a student-centered mindset that we're developing, And here we go with some building upon and securing resources through our systems. And the combination of the EWS and the student success systems, as well as community schools. Let's hear it for community schools, huh? Right. And how that helps build and expand the strategic partnerships that we have, so that we have an all hands in, all hands on deck kind of approach. And so then you move over to the culture and the focus on strong, supportive relationships, and how our panel mates have really talked about how important it is to have that agency, that belonging, that connectedness, so that we create a culture of belonging, safety, and care. And so that's been really something through our community schools framework and the strategic partnerships that we've built upon that has really helped us build that culture. And so as you can see, it's really a multi-pronged approach coming together. And the last C word for this slide is coherence, and really bringing everything together.
Collaborative structure. So the state of New Mexico passed an Attendance Act in 2018 requiring all schools and districts to have attendance plans. But what we found is that if it's a document on a desk, it's a document on a desk. Improving student attendance is a collaborative effort. It takes the entire community to do this work. And I think that's the biggest lever that we really are using now, and looking at data and using our skills, habits, and mindset survey to look at what students are furthest away from opportunity, what students don't feel connected to peers or adults on campus, and then really leveraging interventions like Operation Graduation, where students have a champion that works with them specifically. Also student attendance plans, student success plans. One example I want to give is, I mentioned no school is too large or too small, but one of our high schools, Volcano Vista High School, through student success systems this year, they have 2,200 students, and you're thinking, how can a school that large do something about attendance? Well, they actually worked with teachers, they worked with their staff, they worked as a team to not have perfection, but to actually identify students that were improving and then celebrating their success. They moved up 15% in chronically absent students. That's a total of 30 classrooms that they filled this school year by using student success systems. So that's something I just want to elevate. And then again, our district priorities, looking at focus, goals, and student outcomes. We have a saying in our district that student outcomes don't improve until adult behaviors change. And what we know is that I am the genesis of transformation, and each individual educator being an agent of transformation.
So in terms of looking at how we're organized, you see the collaborative structure, you see the priorities that are in place, and then you really layer it with the strategic partnerships. Governor McKee, correct, talked about the municipal nature and the empowerment of all hands-in approach. And so with regards to strategic partnerships, our school and our city and our county are part of our district are part of a joint powers agreement that really helps develop a shared governance structure that brings together all types of key partners, ranging from the United Way, who helps us with our biannual attendance conference, to the University of New Mexico, to health organizations, anywhere and in between that are really on this board that really help us come together and really help with those partnerships that are really taking place. And then at the school level, we have, through our community school coordinators and our principals working in tandem, the development of a community school council that is in place at every community school that is, again, multiple stakeholders really coming together to look at root causes, to look at interventions, to look at solutions, to celebrate the wonderful things that are going on, because as Scott was saying, it's the hub of the community that really helps us through that. And then I'll end with the state level structures and that upper layer of state level support that really helps us in terms of, again, not taking a punitive approach, but really taking an equity focused type of approach to really, again, focus on relationships, focus on really valuing the student and the family and bringing them in and making sure that they know they matter and we want them in school.
Thank you so much. I just want to point out how what Albuquerque showed is the multiple levels of work this is going to have to happen at. It's both bottoms up and top down, all at the same time, right? And part of what allows for some of, if you think about kids and families and their interaction at the most core level, because that's what allows you to know your challenge. And that's what you have built into your system with your early morning success approach, and then combining that with community schools. Because then as you know that challenge, you can figure out your partnerships, and you can figure out how we can address those needs that might not be met internally with the resources in schools. And then you're bringing on along all the other local, municipal, state level infrastructures so that we can move this work at scale. I want to take a moment and have us think a little bit about partnerships. And we actually have a couple colleagues in the room who will help us think about who else we could be bringing along the table. So the question for our colleagues is, who's a key partner for improving attendance? Why? And what's your advice for getting them to the table? And each of you get 1 minute. And we are going to start with Todd. Todd Rogers, professor at Harvard University.
Hi, folks. What an incredible panel. I'm more optimistic. Yeah. I am more optimistic than I have been in a long time seeing all these practices. I'm a professor at Harvard. I do research on family engagement and reducing absenteeism, and work with Sade and Tyree and lots of other folks here, where we worked on, you've heard reference from Director Tandon to many others to these nudge letters. And so I did the original research on this. Districts here asked my lab at Harvard to implement it for them. So we spun out a separate organization that works with districts to actually implement the sort of tested program. And it's really founded in how do we engage families in ways that treat them as partners, both motivatingly, but also accessibly and in a way that they value. And it's not just about communicating, it's about communicating effectively. And so we do this separate organization, Everyday Labs, does these sort of like programmatic, tested interventions that consistently reduce chronic absenteeism by 10% district-wide, because it's sort of an overlay on these practices and it's part of some of these districts. Would love to talk with anybody about it. It's not enough. 10% is not enough. We want 25 is not enough. We're all working on more, but 25 is more. So happy to talk with any district that wants to talk about how these sort of nudge letter approach works. Also happy to talk to the philanthropists here, because we have an initiative where we have networked a bunch of districts that the pipes are already connected to implement it district-wide if philanthropists wanted to talk about it. But thank you guys for what you're doing. And Hetty, thanks for including us.
And so I think that's pointing out the key importance of engaging families, and there are better and worse ways to do that. Lakeisha Steele is with Castle. So Castle, what are your some thoughts, given what you all know about who are key partners, why, and how do we get them to the table?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this question and the opportunity to be a part of this important discussion. Students, I think we've heard from all of our school leaders, our amazing school leaders on this incredible panel today, how important it is to ensure that students are key partners in addressing chronic absenteeism and understanding what it takes to engage them. I think Richmond Public Schools taught us today in Columbus Public Schools taught us today the importance of students being seen and feel seen, valued, and heard throughout their curriculum, but also throughout their entire, school experience. When students lose that connectivity to school, it hampers their academics, it hurts them socially and emotionally, and they lose out on these meaningful connections to learn, but also to form the meaningful partnerships that you all are talking about, and to form relationships with their peers and with all the adults in their building, especially our educators, which is so critical for social and emotional skill development. I think we've heard from Albuquerque and we heard from New York about the creative ways in which we can engage our students. We are engaging them through mentoring groups, you're engaging them through meaningful family engagement, you're engaging them through focus groups and surveys, and you're really getting to the root causes of what is causing students to miss out on school. And you're also partnering with them around the policies and practices to enhance their learning and their school experience.
Thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, Heidi Schumacher is our Dr. Heidi Schumacher. She's a pediatrician, and she's part of the American Academy of Pediatrics and their Council on School Health. And I think this is so helpful as we're coming out of a pandemic where there's so much confusion still about when to send kids to school, when to keep them, how do we keep them healthy. So Heidi, I suspect we know who you're going to talk about as a key partner, but can you tell us why and how do we get pediatricians to the table?
Thank you so much, Hetty, and it is such an honor to be with this incredible group of leaders. So I would elevate pediatricians, of course, but healthcare professionals. Generally, many of our panelists spoke on this, both school-based healthcare professionals and community-based healthcare professionals. And the reason is, as Hetty mentioned, pediatricians, right, are advising families on when to come back when they're sick. But more broadly, healthcare partners often are positioned to prevent, identify, treat, or support families with the health and social factors that we know make it hard to get to school every day. And as the Secretary mentioned, the American Academy of Pediatrics continues to engage our member pediatricians all across the country with explicit strategies within the healthcare space to engage on attendance, to support and empower and educate families. So I would say, as to bring them to the table, many of our panelists spoke to this already, but including school-based clinical partners, mental health clinicians, et cetera, within your school attendance teams is a great opportunity. I'd plug school nurses too, right? School nurses often are partnering with families already around health and social challenges. School nurses can also be a nice connection point to pediatricians in the community who, again, want to work with you and engage with your attendance teams and as part of your public messaging. Every state also has an American Academy of Pediatrics chapter, so that's another good entrance point. And I'll just close by saying the nation's pediatricians are so eager to partner with families and with schools to ensure that every child is healthy, present, and ready to learn every day. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you so much. And can I ask for one last round, a huge round of applause for our amazing panel.
This has been fabulous. To wrap up, we have one last speaker. Following Dr. Schumacher, we will hear on a video from Dr. Vivek Murthy, the Surgeon General of the United States, who will talk about some of the things we spoke about already.
Hi, everyone. I'm U.S. Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy. I would like to thank my friend and colleague Neera Tandon for inviting me to join you today and for her leadership of the White House Domestic Policy Council. Today's summit delves into issues I am passionate about, both as Surgeon General and as the father of 2 young children: the importance of school and how school attendance is critical for our kids' mental health and well-being. It has become clear that we are living through a youth mental health crisis. This has become the defining public health challenge of our time, and I hear about this consistently from students and parents as I visit communities across America. That's why in December 2021, I issued a Surgeon General's advisory on protecting youth mental health, followed by an advisory on our epidemic of loneliness and isolation, and a subsequent advisory on social media and youth mental health. School can be a powerful force in enhancing our kids' mental health, their social connection, and their overall sense of well-being. It's where many children build relationships with their peers, enjoy a sense of community and belonging, access mental health counselors, and build the social and emotional skills that they need to thrive. This is why the loss of in-person school during the pandemic and ongoing high rates of absenteeism are so deeply concerning. When children don't have access to caring educators and counselors, and when they struggle with loneliness and isolation, they are at increased risk for depression and anxiety. Today, young people have the highest rates of loneliness and isolation in the population. This is one of the key reasons why getting kids back to school has been a top priority for our administration. I remember President-elect Biden making it clear that he wanted to act immediately to reopen schools when he took office. And in the early months of 2021, the administration made historic investments in our nation's schools to ensure that state and local education leaders had the resources that they needed to reopen schools safely and to support counselors, educators, and students. Thanks to these measures and the hard work of educators on the ground, 98% of our schools were fully open by the fall of 2021. Now we are working to ensure that students stay in school. Schools should be the crown jewels of our communities. They help our kids build a foundation for a healthy and happy life. They foster academic curiosity, skill building, growth, and relationships. These are the key building blocks that our kids need more than ever. Our task is not just to go back to pre-pandemic normal. We must respond in new and creative ways to the mental health challenges that our children and youth have faced for far too long, long before the pandemic arrived. When we adequately design and support schools, they can be a powerful force in helping us meet these challenges. I am grateful for the work all of you are doing to bring this vision that we share to life. My kids, your kids, and our nation's kids are depending on us. So let's make sure we deliver for them. Thank you.
So I will close this up very briefly. First of all, thank you all for coming. Thank you to our amazing panelists. Thank you for the work you do every day. We will have for you the slides from today. So I know some of you were taking pictures. Don't worry. We will get them to you in better form. I will close with 3 quick thoughts. One was something Dr. Murthy said. This is a priority for the president. You know that from being here. And you know that if you look at our budget, we know that funding is an issue in schools across the country. We're doing all that we can so that schools are adequately resourced, including specifically for the kinds of interventions we talked about today. 2, we still have a lot to learn. I think one thing that we saw today was there are amazing interventions happening around the country, and the opportunity for us to learn from each other about what is most effective and also to bring to bear effective research so that we are really seeing the best ways to spend those limited dollars. This is an opportunity. Secretary Cardona, the department, all of us are invested in that endeavor of learning. And the third thing, and just to close, I'll pick up on something that Neera said, which was we can't accept a new normal of high chronic absenteeism. We all believe that. I think something that came out of today for me was this possibility of a positive new normal, which would be a new normal where kids expect and families expect they're going to be in school, where schools are engaging for those students, where there is that caring adult, where the schools are using the data. They're not just dashboards, but people are clicking through 1, 2, 3 times, not more. And they're finding the interventions and the tools that kids need so that they're going to be there. And I think you all showed the way to that positive new normal. So we are eager to work with you. Thank you again for coming today.